So, a hotly requested topic right here. This was put in the Telegram channel as a request for us to talk about. And as me and Scotty are men of the people, here we are talking about it. Topic of this one is how to find quote unquote untapped or unsaturated products and markets. This is like kind of the thing. This is kind of the bee's knees. Like if you can do this, you can definitely be successful. And I think like this is one of those things that makes everything else a lot easier. If you can do this, then you don't really have to be that great at ads or writing copy, marketing. Like you can kind of get away with being less skilled if you can do this. The problem is it's pretty difficult, honestly. I think this is kind of like this is the crux of it. Like this is where people don't really give away their secrets in terms of like what they're doing and in this kind of sense, because there's just not a whole lot of benefit to that, I guess. So while we're not going to give away what we think is, our personal untapped or unsaturated product and market, we will give you guys some tips and stuff. And basically what we think, I mean, honestly, we don't even really have an outline for this one. We just wanted to talk and kind of go back and forth and see what we thought of this. And yeah, how we do this, like how we find good markets that aren't super crowded, because I think that is a thing. There's this concept, of markets being saturated, right? It's kind of funny because like super beginner type people will think that like everything is saturated. And then there's like a stage where you start kind of getting a better understanding and you start maybe making a little bit of money, having a little bit of experience. And then you start to think like, oh, nothing's saturated. But I'm starting to get to the point where I'm thinking like there are definitely certain markets that are crowded, that are more saturated, that are more competitive. And finding the markets that are less competitive is really where it's at, especially as the little guy. I have a few thoughts on this, Scotty. What are your thoughts? Do you have any initial thoughts here?
I do. I think I think finding good markets is not at all hard because you literally already know them. Like you already know what good markets are. You already know that golf's a good market. You already know that pain relief, pain relief for older people is a good market. You already know that knee pain is a huge market. Like you already know what the big good markets are because there's, I mean, big good markets are generally big markets. We don't go after super specific stuff, or we do make our stores super specific, but the broad market is easy to find because I think most of the really good broad market, big markets are, as I said, big. So they're not hard to find.
They're out there. I mean, you probably see stuff every day.
Exactly. So you already know what markets are big. Just pick one of them. And then the hard part is finding that product or that offer or that angle that is going to make you stand out in that market. That's really the hard part. But the market I think can be really easy, but they kind of go together. So if we pick golf, golf is a great market. Personally, I'm not in the golf market, and I can't really be in the golf market right now because I've looked, I've tried, and I have never really found a product or an offer that I thought was unique enough or compelling enough to stand out in that market. So the golf market is great, but I don't have the product or the offer that's going to work there. I don't think I've seen anything. I haven't come up with anything yet. So for that reason, I'm going to pass in the golf market. But if you can find that offer, you do see the right product that you think this is going to work great, then off you go. That's pretty much it.
That made it sound a little bit easier than I think it actually is, Scott, man.
It really is that easy though, because if you haven't big market, golf, boxing, MMA, cycling, fishing, any big market like that, and you come across a product, an offer that you think is going to be super compelling to that market, go for it. Test it out. It's either going to work or it's not going to work. Those are the only two options.
Yeah.
And then you go from there.
That's a fair point. My take on this is like, there's not any like crazy I don't know, kind of like the last one. Like there's not like a crazy magic bullet solution to this. To me, it's really just about starting with a kind of broad, huge market and then getting really specific in who you're targeting and what you're selling, what angle you're using, and just kind of making yourself very specific for a very specific type of person so that you don't have to compete with everyone else that's in that market. I think that the untapped, the unsaturated stuff, it's the stuff that isn't like super obvious because it's just so specific. And I think that's really the challenge. To me, I mean, my main process for like finding these untapped or unsaturated products and markets is just by starting with a big proven market, say like skincare or golf or any of the ones that Scotty listed. These kind of obvious markets, like that's a good starting point. But then how can you get more specific? There's a few different areas, in terms of like, it really depends on the market. If it's skincare, I mean, there's so many different types of skincare, and you can get so specific with it. Scotty, I think can we mention this? The good old I'll abbreviate it in case you don't want me to mention it. SI.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So Scotty's got this brand. I'm actually not involved with this brand. He's got this brand. He's partnered with one of our friends, one of our boys, and they have a brand that sells tattoo oil. So I think that's probably a pretty solid example of an untapped or an unsaturated market. Now, the reason that I think we're willing to mention that is because the product that he's selling is literally a proprietary formula that was made in a lab by a crazy man who just loves making freaking formulas, I guess. And there's really no possible way for anyone to duplicate that. But I think that's a really great example, starting with the skincare market. And Scotty, I'm kind of curious to hear if this is like what your thought process was, but my thought process on this is like, you can start with something super general, like the skincare market, and then you just get more and more specific until you have something that could be considered, untapped or unsaturated. So people take care of their skin. Okay, how can we get more specific? Well, people with tattoos, they have skin, obviously, and they have a very specific set of wants and needs, desires, and everything along those lines. And that is just such a specific market that there's not really a whole lot of people competing in that market. And because of that, that makes it a little bit more easier, a little bit easier. And I would consider that maybe an untapped or unsaturated market.
Yeah. So the way we came up with that is actually quite simple. I've always wanted to be involved in the skincare market in one way or another. Just huge market, highly competitive, very lucrative for those that can make it work. So I've always been interested, always wanted to be in that market. So I had this idea. I knew of Johnny. Decided to reach out. So, hey, do you want to launch a project together? He was interested. Just the right timing. He was just at a stage in his main business where he was ready to take on a new challenge. It worked out. I said to him, hey, do you have any ideas for what we could launch? It's like, as a matter of fact, I have about 20. So he sends me over a list of product ideas that he's had over the past 3 or 4 years, I guess. And among them was tattoo oil. There was a bunch of others. And then my job as a marketer is to look at this list of products and see which of these has potential in my eyes. And the reason I liked the tattoo oil was it is for a specific type of person with tattoos. You're either in that group or you're not in that group. There's no ambiguity there. Now, if you take something else like an all-natural shampoo, for example, who uses shampoos? Everyone. Who'd be interested in all-natural shampoo? People who don't like toxic chemicals, which is like, again, I mean, I guess that's a type of person, but it's not like a clearly defined group of people. And I like marketing to very clearly defined groups of people. So the tattoo oil fit that, and did some research, looked up the Facebook interests available for it. Huge market, loads of people with tattoos. Also an aging demographic. We generally sell to older people, not people in their 20s. We're selling to 40 plus. That demographic is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It just seemed to make a lot of sense. So we throw up a store, we test it out, it works, and then we start creating the brand, coming up with the packaging, the labeling, the brand, the name, just doing all that work. But first, start with, hey, I want to do skincare. Step 2, here's a list of options. Filter through by, is there a specific group of people that wants this product? Is that group of people big? Tattoo All checks both boxes. All right, let's take this. Let's test it out. All right, it's working. Let's build the brand.
I dig it. That's pretty cool. I think it's really cool how you guys were able to do that. And I thought it was pretty crazy that you were able to even test that. Like I remember when you were first testing that, like drop shipping it, and there's literally a product on AliExpress that fit it, which was pretty crazy, I thought.
We were doing that off Etsy.
I was off Etsy.
Yeah, we found somebody who sells not tattoo oil, just an oil off Etsy, and we called it a tattoo oil, and we started selling.
That's hilarious. I don't know. That's honestly a little bit of a golden nugget there. A little bit of inspo for you, getting outside of the box. But
Yes.
that's like, to me, I mean, that's most of it, man. Like,
I've got one more thing about once you've picked a market, how do you come up with products? So you can just brainstorm and think. Sometimes that will help. You can go on Ali. Sometimes that will help. But I think the main thing is if you're in a big market, there's going to be big companies selling in that space, online and maybe even offline. So what you want to do is you want to look at what are they selling? What are people in my market already buying? And then sell something similar to that, but put your own twist on it, do it differently.
I think that's on it. Like that's just so simple, but I think that's a really great insight. Just picking some sort of general market, and like you don't have to overthink this. You see products all the time. Like I think people kind of freeze up when they start thinking about this because it's like it just seems like this big stressful thing. But just like take a step back a little bit and just kind of think about it like it's not even something you're trying to build. Just think about different products, different markets. Start really, really broad, and then just see how you can get more specific with it. And I think you'd be surprised at what you can do just by following that strategy and taking something that starts pretty broad and then just figuring out how can I get more specific with this. And then you look at what successful brands in that market are already selling. And then, I mean, maybe you could sell that exact same product, but then niche it down and only target a specific group of people. Because these, a huge brand is probably going to be a lot more broad, and they have that luxury and they can do that because they're established and they have the resources and all that kind of stuff to be able to do that. But as the little guys, it's a lot harder for us to do something like that. So we have to kind of get more specific with it. Maybe you could sell a similar product, but get very, very specific in who you're targeting. To me, that's just what it's all about. It's about getting very specific. That's where the untapped, the unsaturated products and markets are. Outside of that, I mean, like maybe you could find something that was just completely untapped that had a huge broad market, but like that's so rare. And that's just like not even, that's not a reliable way to do that, in my opinion. I think you just really got to get more specific.
100%.
And that's really what it comes down to. That's like honestly a huge e-com secret is just getting very specific in who you're selling to. That's how we do it. That's how we like to think about it. And I'm trying to think if there's any other like specific tactical stuff. Like look around online, man. Look around for inspiration. Like a huge part of it to me is it's getting specific, but then you also have to have a good starting point. And I think a really great way to have a great starting point is to just be constantly exposing yourself to inspiration. Just constantly be looking at ads or at brands that are successfully selling products. Do just random research when you get bored. Just see what's out there. And if you expose yourself to a bunch of inspiration and you're constantly kind of thinking in that frame of mind, like, how can I make this more specific? How can I niche this down? You're eventually going to stumble across something that's going to work really well. It's just a matter of kind of doing that work and always kind of thinking about that, always being on the lookout for these things because they're all around you. When you're scrolling through Instagram, you see ads. When you're walking down the street and you see different stores, even just random products. If you walk into a little gift shop or something, like there's inspiration literally everywhere if you're out there looking for it. So I think that would be my last recommendation here is just keep your eyes open. That's literally one of the best things that you could do. That's literally how I found my first big, quote unquote winning product. It was from real life. It wasn't from a winning product software or anything like that. It was literally from real life. So there's ideas out there. You just got to be looking for them.
100%.
Cool. Well, I think that's about it for this one. If you have any questions about this, want us to expand on anything, as always, hit us up in Telegram, let us know, and we'll see you guys in the next one.